Hey, this is Nick at Nexus Property Management here in New Haven County. I'm in North Haven, Connecticut right now. The sun is shining, the flowers are blooming, and more people are looking for places to live. Right, so we're getting more rental applications this time of year than previous when it was a bit cooler, and that's typical trends. And with that in mind, I want to talk about a topic that's a pretty big one right there. First of all, make life easy. Hire Nexus or a property manager to take care of that. Someone that's got experience, has seen these profiles time and time again, can have a good feel for that person. Because your goal here is to mitigate risk and get a qualified tenant. So there are some platforms that make it easier to do that online, but it makes sense to tap into a professional with such an important investment. But all these rental applications are starting to come in. And every year we see the same kind of spot where owners get stuck. And I would posit that it's both the most overrated and also underrated part of the rental application. And that is credit scores. Right? We've seen a lot of qualified tenants thrown by the wayside because their credit scores didn't live up to what owners expected. And that's a shame, especially with the single families, right? There are a lot of single family rentals out there right now with the mortgage rates up, right? People having a harder time selling. We've got communities we mentioned here, Hamden right around the corner, where tax rates are high. And again, it's making properties less desirable. So the rental game is moving, right? We get a lot of people coming in, and often we have owners who are expecting to rent to themselves. I worked at the hospital. I've got a score of 812. I should be able to rent to someone who also has a score of 812. Those people aren't looking to rent, right? They're buying something, or there's something else. They're out there, but there aren't many of them, right? It's like playing poker, some kind of poker, and waiting. You're waiting to you have 5 aces in your hand to make a play, right? We can't eliminate risk. We're just looking to mitigate it. So the credit score is something that people get hung up on. We just had a case last week, it was the beginning of the month, where there were 3 people, younger. Their credit scores were not good, but their ability to pay was good, right? They had a full story behind everything, but their credit scores were in the 500s. And those were beat up by a credit card where one of them owed $252, but that's pretty much all he had to it, right? So just looking at those numbers, very overrated, right? They're misleading, but it's underrated because, as we're starting to get into, it leads to some actual genuine context. And when you look at these applications, so much of it is curated. Tenants are providing references of their prior landlord, right? They're not going to give you a landlord that hated them, right? They're curating this. They're sending you their landlord or their cousin who's pretending to be their landlord. They're giving you the person at work, right, that's going to vouch for them. Maybe it is really their supervisor, maybe it's not, but they're curating that whole thing. They're painting a picture for you, right? That's all there. But there's not much digging that goes into it. The credit score is your place to dig. So if somebody does have that credit score in the 500s, instead of that being the end of the conversation, that should be the beginning of the conversation. Your credit score is a lot lower than I expected based on our conversation. Tell me why. What's going on here? This is where you build that story, where you get an understanding. Because the goal with that credit score is not necessarily to just have a number and say, check in the box. You're assessing reliability. So if somebody can explain how they got to where they are, right, they're good to go. And to me, it comes down to 2 words, right? When we have somebody that has a low credit score, right, but they think that they are good candidates nonetheless, everyone's got their excuses. This happened, this happened, this happened. 2 words, prove it. If they can, you take that person, right? If they have their thing organized, this happened 3 years ago, here's my letter from my doctor, here's an email from my lawyer, here's the situation, my jobs, whatever. If they can prove it, that's the reliability you're looking for. That's much deeper than a number spit out by a website. Credit scores, very much overrated, but a good outlet to better understanding and fully understanding that tenant. Now, you're gonna get some stories, you're gonna get a feel, And if you haven't played this game all that often, it might not mean that much to you. That's why you want to hire a professional. Right? We've got experience with these kind of cases. We've seen countless people that have low credit scores, but they're trending in the right direction. We know what that looks like. We know the questions to ask. We know how to help them prove it if they're not able to do so themselves. So ultimately, what we're trying to do for our owners, and what you should be doing for yourself if you decide to go at it alone, is building context, understanding context, trying to get a full feel for the reliability of this person and their ability to pay, right? Pay stubs should tell the ability to pay. The context of the credit should tell the reliability to pay. You put those together and you've got a good feel, right, for this prospective tenant. So when it comes to the credit score, just to kind of recap, it is very much overrated, but it's a great outlet for you to get the story that you need to feel confident that you're placing the right tenant, right, and mitigating that risk over the long term, right? At Nexus, we're always trying to create hassle-free long-term tenancy. It all starts with the leasing process. So please make sure you're fully comfortable doing so, or find someone else who is. Nexus Property Management, your leasing and credit analysis managed.